is there anything being taught that you've noticed that's either not accurate or not exactly correct that kind of that you'd like to address, we'll just say?
I mean, that's that's a little bit harder question to unravel. And the reason being is that there was a time, like, so if you were to take off the table something that's unsafe, all right? So if it's unsafe, clearly
Mhm.
that's wrong and needs to be
Right.
addressed.
Yeah.
So you take that off the table, and what you're left with is you're left with a lot of things. One of the things that separates us from a lot of other people is that we don't just focus on, you know, on body carry and particularly on the waistband type carry. We focus on a lot of other methods of carry. And every now and then we'll hear people that will badmouth a particular method of carry. And the again, the reason why we're where we're at is because we have a much greater knowledge base, or understanding of the customer base and the clientele base. There's like within the firearms industry, you've got, I would maybe put it at 2 to 3% at the top of this industry are people that I would consider to be a returning student. They're not a one and done.
Mhm.
They've at least taken more than one training class. All right, so that represents like about 2 to 3% of the actual firearms industry, and that's
Mhm.
being generous. That's
Yeah.
being very generous.
Yeah.
Very.
The one and done represents maybe about another 2 or 3%, and so you have everybody else. And the
Mhm.
reasons that everybody else hasn't invested in training and education is a variety of reasons, but a lot of them is because they're told they can't do it.
Hmm.
So, well, if you don't carry appendix, you're going to die on the streets because it's fast, it's easy, it's the best, it's blah blah blah. Well, surprisingly, a lot of people are not comfortable with that, and so when they hear that, when they're told that, when somebody encourages that, they decide that they're not interested in it. And
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what I think as far as what's the best, what's the most awesomest, what's gonna win the day. It doesn't matter what I think. What matters is that you have to be able to listen to the student and understand what the situation is the student has to work with.
Mhm.
Everything from an adaptive athlete to a single mom to an elderly couple. All of these groups have unique challenges that are not the same as everybody else. That are
Mhm.
so the problem with the industry is that they try to design training around 2% of the industry,
Mhm.
which is, in my opinion, ridiculous. And the problem is that the majority of those folks are fighting or arguing about which is better in the 2%. It doesn't matter. What matters is that if you're truly invested as or if you are trying to be the best instructor that you can be, then you have to recognize that nothing's off the table. You may not like it, you may not do it, you may not suggest it, but you have to be able to address it and be able to provide valuable information that will help that individual to better themselves with whatever the tools are that they have, whatever it is. So, my biggest complaint within the industry is the 2% that try to drive the training or try to influence training. And it's more prevalent these days because social media makes it really easy
Mhm.
to create what I call a false narrative of what's the best. And the other problem too that you'll see is that it's extremely subjective to put that out there best. One of the things that we do very well is that we collect data. I mean, we've been collecting data since we first started training. The very first, tests that we ran way back in the day, we still have the scores from that. And the reason for us to do that is so that we can actually have information to make informed decisions on. So when we sit there and talk about what's best, most of the time, best is a response to a very narrow and seldom occurring incident. The bottom line is that what the general public is training for is an unknown, unknowable event. So to paint yourself in a corner so quickly and easily with best makes it very difficult for the newer shooters to have that investment. The most precious investment that they'll make towards you is their trust. And
Mhm.
once you've lost the trust of the student, you're not going to get it back. It's unlikely, I should say, that you'll get it back. So they have to be able to trust you that you can do your job, which is provide them answers. You can't provide them answers by telling them what they're doing wrong.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, that's the wrong gun, the wrong holster, the wrong position, the wrong this, the wrong that. The bottom line is that it may not be, in your opinion, the best, but you've got to be able, and this goes back to something that you asked me earlier in the podcast, which is adaptability. You as the instructor have to be able to adapt to what your student brings to the table,
Yeah.
and be very and being very dogmatic about that means that you're not really a true educator. You're just somebody that espouses the same stuff over and over and over again, but you're
Right.
not a true educator.
That's so valuable. That was worth the price of admission right there, I think. It really is. I mean, you're just laying down truth bombs left and right, and we all know it's true, and I don't think it's spoken about enough, honestly. I mean, I appreciate your honesty, and I think
Mm.
others will too.